Good morning, boys and girls. Today I'm going to be teaching lesson 10.3 of our fraction review during the closure. So I hope you have your pen and paper ready so you're ready to go. Remember, you can pause this video at any time to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see our daily Common Core for the day. Oopsie, went away. And share. Okay, I'm going to make this bigger, so if you want to see my cats jumping around in the background, you are free to do that. Okay, I'm going to show you how I set up my spiral for our daily Common Core so that you have an idea of what yours should look like. I did not show any of the work yet, so you can't just copy that. So for number 1, you're setting up a division problem. For number 2, it's going to be a fraction problem. For number 3, we're going to be doing some rounding. For number 4, we're going to be listing some numbers from least to greatest. For number 5, we're going to be doing an estimate and then finding the sum. Remember, you're going to have to round on that one. For number 6, it's a multi-step problem, and I highly suggest you pay attention when I do it on the screen because it's a pretty complex problem. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. So on number 1, please write down 18 divided by 3. And if you need to draw 3 circles and then divvy your objects up into those 3 groups, that might be a strategy that you can choose to use. Okay, number 2, what fraction of the shape is shaded? So if you think back to what I did, I drew the fraction. I drew 6 boxes and I shaded 4. So you need to decide, does the shaded portion represent 2/6, 2/4, 4/6, or 6/4? And number 3, what is 312 rounded to the nearest 10? So on that one, found a little stylus pen, so we're going to see if that works. I'm going to model how I want you to set that up on your paper. So please write 312, underline your tens place, draw an arrow to the ones, and then round it to the nearest tens. If it helps you, remember that silly little song, 5 or above, give it a shove, 4 below, let it go. That might help you remember whether you're rounding it to 300, 310, 320, or 400. Remember, you are rounding to the tens. Okay, our next one, we will be ordering the numbers from least to greatest. One thing I hope you notice is they all have a 9 in the hundreds place. So I am going to highlight that. Oopsie, thought I was going to highlight that. So since they all have a 9 in the hundreds place, I need to go next door and look at the tens place. I'm just going to use my cursor, otherwise the mouse shakes. So as we look at what's in the tens place, we have a 6, a 7, a 1, and a 7. We are going from least to greatest. I am curious if I can pause this for a second. Ooh, no, I can just pause the share. I was hoping I could pause the video. Let's see what that does. Nope. Bummer. Okay, so I was hoping to pause it for a second and write down the answers and then show you, but I'm going to write them in mine. Hopefully by the time I'm done writing that one down, you will have figured out the order that they go in also. So remember, all of them start with 900, so you can put down your hundreds place. Okay, hopefully yours is done also. If not, please hit pause. Don't just peek at my answers. Okay, so smallest, 917. Next, you have 961, 971, and 977. So both of these have a 7 in the tens place. So then you had to look next door at the ones place. The 1 is smaller than the 7, so 977 is your largest number. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now looking at number 5, there are 276 students at Johnson Elementary School. There are 412 students at Eisenhower Elementary School, and they want you on this one to estimate the total number of students all together. So they give us a couple clue words that we need to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to estimate, and we need to pay attention to all together. Those tell us that we are going to be rounding, and then the all together tells us we are going to be adding. So I am going to move the picture a little bit so that I have room to show some work. So I am going to start by writing my 276. I'm going to try using the stylus again, see how that works. Whoopsie. 200 doesn't work very good. Let me hit the backup button and I will do it a different way. Okay. I'm going to type it. So 276, and I want to round that. And then 412, and I also want to round that. Okay, let me move this a little bit. I'm going to make them both bigger. Okay, let's try 26. Oh, that's nice and big. Okay, so remember, you underline your tens place, draw an arrow to the ones, underline your tens place, draw an arrow to your ones. Now, yes, you could have rounded to the hundreds, but that's not going to give you a very accurate estimate. So please round 276, please round 412 to the nearest tens. And then since it said all together, you know you need to add them. So please pause the video now. I'm going to do the work in my spiral and then we're going to compare answers. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully your rounding looks like my rounding. I ended up with a total of 690. Okay, number 6 and 7 are kind of tricky, so I hope you pay very close attention to this one. And I'm going to need room to work on that. So use this information to answer 6 and 7. Phil has 10 golf balls. So let's make Phil green. Steve has twice as many golf balls as Phil. I'm going to make him pink. I'm not going to highlight everything in that one, just the important information. And then it says that Paul has 2 more, and now I'm going to do my funny colors, than Phil. Remember, Phil is green. And Steve have all together. So all together is an important clue word. So I want to make sure I make a note of that. Whoopsie. Okay, I'm going to move that so it doesn't cover up my words. So our first question is, how many golf balls does Steve have? We need to look at our pink information. It says Steve has twice as many golf balls as Phil. And remember, I had made Phil green. Okay, so how many golf balls does Steve have? Steve, S, that's supposed to be an S this time, equals twice as many. So that means I need to multiply 2 times, and it says fill. So I'm going to be multiplying by fill. Now I need to think back to the problem. Phil, we made him green. Don't know. Oh, it doesn't really show up on my background. That's a bummer. And Steve was pink. So let's make Steve pink again. Okay, so Steve is twice as much as Phil. So please look back in the problem and take note of how many Phil has. Phil has how many? Hopefully you were thinking 10. So Steve equals 2 times 10. So I'm going to write that down in my spiral and then show you my work. I had already pre-written some of it. So I have Phil equals 10 golf balls. Steve is 2 times Phil, 2 times 10. And ladies and gentlemen, hopefully your brain's going, oh, that's 20. That's a nice easy one. So hopefully you now added the 20 down below. So remember, this gets you ready for algebra later in life. So all of us should have written 20 down on our paper. There we go. Now this next one is a little trickier because we have layers of stuff going on for this problem. Now that we have figured out Steve, we can use that information to figure out how much Paul has. So it says Paul has 2 more golf balls than Phil and Steve have all together. So I'm going to write kind of like I did last time. This time I'm going to say Paul. So Paul equals, I'm going to write Paul in here, P-A, I didn't want to use P because I had already written P for Phil. So Paul equals 2 more than Phil and Steve. So hopefully you're going, well, 2 more means I need to add. So 2 more. Okay, now we're combining people. So I'm going to use those parentheses that we learned about earlier this year. So 2 more than Phil. So we found a few minutes ago that Phil had 10. So 2 more than Phil. And Steve. So we just found out that Steve has 20. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to add this up. I'm going to add it in my spiral and then we'll compare answers. So if you need to pause the video, please do so. Oopsie, my pen's being grumpy. And I'd rather you use pencil. I'm just using pen so it'll show up for you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hope you're ready. So in mine, I wrote Paul equals, that's supposed to be a 2, sorry if it looks like backwards 6, plus Phil plus Steve, 2 plus, there's my parentheses, 10 plus 20, and then I have 2 plus 30. My 30 came from adding those two, and then my grand total that Paul has is 32. So hopefully you also came up with 32 as your answer. Oh, that's kind of messy. Apologize for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to go to our video for the day. I just have to figure out which tab I have it in because I love tabs. And let's move this out of the way so that we can see our video. There we go, tuck B down in the corner. And play. Woo, that's loud.
Compare and order fractions. Think about this question during the lesson. Joanne and Angel each order a pizza that is the same size. The pizza can be cut into 4 or 6 pieces. Joanne has 3/4 of her pizza left. Angel has 4/6 left. Who has more left? Has less. Compare the fractions.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, they're asking us to decide which is more, which is less, 4/6 or 3/4. Remember, our alligator is going to eat the smaller amount. Oopsie, there it goes. Maybe. So what it just wants you to do is to compare the fractions. You can look at the visual and decide which one is larger and which one is smaller. So each one shows how much of the whole is remaining. Okay, I'd love for you to whisper out to your pet who has more. Okay, now whisper out who has less. That's what's it representing. And in our case, it's representing what would be the entire pizza. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If your video is not working, you are welcome to log into Hello ID and rewatch the video in Pearson. And just remember, when you go into Pearson, you'll be looking for the eyeball. You should be able to access that. Okay, so our problem of the day, solve any way you choose, and I went into fancy smartboard land and found us some fraction strips because I love fraction strips. Okay, Liz and Tyler are each putting tiles on a wall. Each wall is the same size. Liz has 5/8 of her wall tiled. Tyler has 1/4 of his wall tiled. Who has the greatest part of the wall tiled? who has the lesser part of the wall tiled. So I brought more fraction strips over than I really need. I really only need the eighths and the fourths. Before we get started, I want you to just kind of make a wild guess about who you think has the greater amount and who you think has the smaller amount. And then if you end up getting it right, give yourself an awesome pat on the back. And if you get it wrong, replay the video so that you understand a little bit more about which one was larger and why, which one was smaller and why. So we're going to start by building Liz. So I need to come over here and grab the eighths, and I need 5 of them. So there's 1. There's 2. And I'm going to see if I can do this a little faster. 3, 4, and 5. So now I have shown Liz, and I'm going to type Liz. And I'm going to put 5/8 next to it so that I don't forget what her amount was. So there's Liz with 5/8, and my other person is Tyler. And Tyler has 1/4 of the wall built. So whisper out into internet land how many of those 1/4 pieces I need to go grab. And hopefully you just said 1. So now I need a statement about who has the greatest part of the wall tiled, and I want to use the question in my answer. So on your paper, I'm going to put some blanks. Has the greater part of the wall tiled. And as you can see, my space bar is still not working quite right. Okay, so hopefully you have that written and you wrote a name in it. Now I'm gonna do the fancy Control-C, Control-V, and then just change it to lesser because I love copy-paste. I'm gonna change that to lesser. Alrighty, now you get to see me use the fancy stylus to try to write in it. So as I'm looking up here, I'm going to go for this greater one, and that was Liz. So I'm going to write Liz in my blank. Whoops, helps to activate the pen. Okay, hopefully your word Liz looks better than my word Liz. Now, who has the lesser part? And that was Tyler. Tyler had the smaller part. So I'm going to try to write Tyler in this blank. There we go, that's not too bad. So hopefully you wrote that down also and you didn't just watch me do the work. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on to our lesson. Okay, so today we are comparing fractions and they have different denominators. I built in a lot of visual models because it kind of jumps right in. And I thought, oh, some of us aren't quite ready for that. And when we took the topic test on this, some of us struggled with this concept. So I figured I would reteach it and hopefully you're watching and building on your knowledge. So we need to compare 2/3, and I'm going to make a little line. Oh, it didn't show up as well as I'd hoped. Bummer. Okay, we'll move it up here. So there's 2/3. Now I need to compare that to 2/4. So I'm going to come over here. Oh, that's why. There's my line. And I'm going to do 2/4. And now I'm going to move it. And hopefully you can see those two lines side by side and you can say, oh, I can see which one's bigger. Now it tells you to circle the greater fraction. What I would rather you do is do the alligator mouth. So I'm going to model that in my book and show you what I want that to look like. So today is 10.3. Number 1, I am comparing 2/3 and 2/4. And when we did the lines on it, we realized that 2/3 is greater than 2/4. So hopefully you also have that written down. Okay, so Now, while I'm writing in my book, you can be writing in your book for number 2. I would like you to write down 1/3, leave a space, and then 3/6. And in a moment, we'll draw the lines like we did on the last guy so that you can see. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these guys because we don't need them anymore. Oh, I can reuse that guy. I can just shorten him. Okay, so there's 1/3. And I can't make that guy longer. Okay, Control C, Control V. Now I need 3/6. So I'm going to come down here. Right now I've got 2 of them. So there's 3 of them. So we are comparing 1/3 and we are comparing 3/6. So we want the alligator to eat the bigger one. So you were deciding, is 1/3, that's this guy, is that one larger? Or is 3/6 larger? And I'm going to show my work. And hopefully you're showing your work, and let's compare. So hopefully you wrote 1/3 is less than 3/6. Okay, so I would like you to take a moment to please copy all of these down. If I could pause the video, I would. It would have been smart if I'd have pre-written all these, but I didn't. This is a learning curve. So you are writing 4/8 and 4/6. You are writing 4/4 and 2/4. You are writing 3/4 and 3/6. And you are writing 5/8 and 5/6. So hopefully you also just wrote those 4/8, 4/6, 4/4. 2/4. There we go. Yep, 2/4. 3/4, 3/6, 5/8, 5/6. So if you're wondering why I was having trouble reading it, when I look at it, it's mirrored, so I have to read it backwards. Okay, so 4/8 and 4/6. This ties back into yesterday's lesson about if our fractions have the same numerator. The fraction with the larger denominator is the smaller fraction. So with that in mind, hopefully let me find a pen. With that in mind, hopefully you went, well, if they have the same numerator, the one with the larger denominator is the smaller fraction. So hopefully you just did that in your book. Okay, now these guys, they don't have the same numerator. They do have the same denominator. So this goes back to a lesson a couple of days ago. So if we have fractions with the same denominator, the fraction with the larger numerator is the greater fraction. I'm going to give you a second to do your alligator mouth. And hopefully you went that way on that guy. Okay, now back to same numerator. So if 2 fractions have the same numerator, the fraction with the greater denominator is the smaller fraction. So do your alligator mouth. And hopefully you just did that. Okay, again, we have the same numerator. 2 fractions have the same numerator. The fraction with the greater denominator is the smaller fraction. Do your alligator mouth. And hopefully you marked it like that. Okay, on to the next page. Okay, number 7. So I brought this stuff over. I'm going to move this so that we can see the visual. So if we remember right, Joanne was 3/4. Angel, 4/6. So now they're going to throw Marco into the party. Marco joins the girls for lunch and orders the same size pizza. After lunch, he has 5/6 of his pizza left. Does Marco have the same amount as either of the girls? So I'm going to write Marco here. So they just told us Marco has 5/6. They want to know if that's the same amount as either of the other girls. Is 5/6 the same as 4/6? No. Is 5/6 the same as 3/4? Well, in that case, we don't have denominators that match. We don't have numerators that match. So that one's a little more confusing. So I'm going to go grab some 4th tiles and some 6th tiles so that we can compare them. So I'm going to grab a 4th tile. I'm going to grab a 6th tile. X. Let's go back to our page. Control V. Okay, so I want to compare 3/4 and 5/6. So I'm going to make those infinite cloners real quick. Okay, so we want 5/6. So now we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have 5/6, and we want 3/4. 1, 2, 3. Are they the same? No. 3/4 is just a little bit smaller. So does Marco have the same amount as either of the girls? I'm going to type because that looks better. No. Let's see, why are you all the way over there? No. He has, and hopefully when you were thinking about it, you came to the realization that that he has more than either of the girls. He has more than the girls. And we're going to say 5/6 is larger than 4/6 or 3/4. So if you need to take a moment to copy that down, please do. If it helps you to draw out the visual, you are welcome to do that. I'm going to real quickly copy paste 4/6 down so that you can see that visual. And this represented Joanne. So we had Joanne, we had Marco. Oh, I did that wrong. This was Angel, Marco, and Joanne. And we can clearly see that Marco has more pizza left. Okay, number 8. Ariel and Fiona are eating oranges that are the same size. Ariel eats 4/8 of an orange and Fiona eats 3/6 orange. Who eats more of her orange? Explain. So on this one, I already pre-got ourselves some fraction strips. So for Ariel, we need 4. So there's 2. Trying to line them up. 3 and 4. Now Fiona needs 3 of them. So there's 2 and 3. Okay, now if I had lined these up better, we'd be able to make an observation. But they are hard to move. Hello, there we go. There we go. And there we go. Okay, It's not absolutely perfect like it would be if we had our fraction tiles from school, but I'm hoping that you've just noticed that these are, and there's that fancy word that we learned, equivalent fractions. So we're going to say Ariel and Fiona ate the same amount because 4 8s and 3 6 are, and we're going to type the fancy word. Whoopsie, let me move it so you can see it so it's not just under my head. Equivalent okay, it's still under my head. Okay, let's move you. Okay, Ariel and Fiona ate the same amount because 4 8s and 3 6 are equivalent fractions. So, ladies and gentlemen, on this one, I would like you to take the time. See all that? Please try to put that in your spiral. It might take you a little bit, and your drawing might not be perfect, but it really helps you understand the concept of fractions if you draw them. So if you need to pause the video to do that, please do so. Okay, number 9, they ask us to do some number line work. I meant to lock this earlier. So let's lock that in place so that it doesn't run away on us. Okay. They want us to understand how fractions work on a number line. So they want you to copy and complete the number line by writing the missing fraction. And just like in class, if I'm going to torture you with writing the number line, I'll take time to do it too. So I'm going to use a regular old pen. Please use, see how you have blue lines on your paper? Please use your blue lines. That way it'll look better than what I'm about to draw, because I am doing it where there is no blue line. Ooh, that's not too bad. So I'm putting my arrows at either end. Okay, all the way on the left, put a little mark and put a 0. Way at the right, put a little mark and put a 1. Now this is smack dab in the middle, and it's our missing value. So smack dab in the middle. I'm going to put a nice box there because I've got to come back and fill that in. We'll see if I can write small enough later. Okay, now way over here, they've given us 1/4. That looks like it's about halfway between my box and my 0. So I'm finding my halfway point, making a mark, and labeling it 1/4. Okay, now this one looks like it's about halfway between my box and my 0. So making a mark, and it's labeled 3/4. So I'm going to write 3/4 on my paper. There we go. Now think back to when we were in class and we did bunny jumps. So we are going to do our bunny jumps. 1, ooh, look, matches the numerator. 2, keep that in mind for a moment. 3 matches my numerator. 4, ooh, that matches my denominator for all of these. So I know my denominator needs to be what? 4. So I'm going to put my denominator down, which hopefully you just thought, ooh, yep, 4, Mrs. Mears. Okay, now a little bit ago when we were doing our bunny jumps, what number did we say when we reached here? And if you've forgotten, we'll do it again real quick. 1, 2. So we want 2 for our numerator. And hopefully yours looks a little neater than mine. Now I want you to take a second and think, what is an equivalent fraction for 2/4? Earlier we talked about this blue spot looked like it was about blank between 0 and 1. And hopefully when your brain just filled in the blank, your brain said half. So up here above, I would like you to write half because that's an equivalent fraction for 2/4. Okay, number 10 through 13, copy and complete. Use less than, greater than, or equal to compare. Use the number line to help. Well, they didn't provide you with a number line in the book, so I took the time to make some number lines down here that we can use to help ourselves. So we need to find 3/4 and we need to find 1/2. So please pause the video for a moment and copy all of these down, 10 through 13. And I'm going to move myself out of the way a little bit so that we can see stuff. Okay, so welcome back. 3/4. I pre-got some of these little do-jobbers, and I thought for some of us that might help us. So I'm hoping you'll notice that, oh look, Mrs. Mears was trying to be tricky. There's 1/4. There's 2/4. And there's, I wasn't quite as accurate as I wanted. There's 3/4. So on this number line, I am going to label 3/4. Now I'm comparing it to 1/2. If I look up here, what did I discover 1/2 is equal to? Hopefully you're thinking 2/4. Here's 1/4, here's 2/4. Right here is 1/2. Okay, I'm quickly going to color code these because you guys love when I do that in the classroom. And make that one green. And let's make this other guy pink. And for which one is larger and going to get eaten by our alligator, we need to think which one's closer to 1. So do your alligator now. And hopefully in your spiral, you just did this. And you have that 3/4 is greater than 1. Okay, now I'm going to take a moment and get rid of all that stuff I just put on there, because I don't need that anymore. Bye. Okay. Now I am comparing 1/4 and 2/4. So I'm comparing 1/4, and I'm going to label that 1/4. And I am comparing it to 2/4, which we did just a moment ago. Here was 1, and here is 2. So let's make our 1/4 green. And let's make our 2/4 pink. And I gotta write that one in because I didn't already write it in. 2/4. Okay. Now remember, the alligator wants to eat the bigger one. So while I am moving my highlighting over, I want you to have the alligator eat the bigger one. And hopefully you have marked it like this in your spiral. Okay, now for this next guy, it looks like we have 2/4, so I'm going to keep that guy pink. And we have 4/8. So I'm going to get rid of that guy, get rid of that guy. 4/8. So I'm going to go grab some of these 8s and I'm going to put them on here. Okay, now if I had lined these up better, we would have had an aha moment, but I was not very accurate. Come on, move over a little bit. There, oh, it's too far. Okay, that's probably as good as I'm going to get that. So hopefully you are noticing that 2/4 and 4/8 are, what's that fancy word? Equivalent. So we want an equal sign on that one. Okay, let me move this stuff out of the way now. We are comparing 4/4. I'm going to move that guy down here. There's 3. And there's 4. So we are comparing 4/4 to 3/6. I got to get rid of these 8s. Don't need them anymore. And now I need 3 of these guys. 1, 2, and 3, and hopefully you will beat me to it and get your alligator written before I get mine written. And hopefully you're like, wow, that one's quite a bit bigger than the other. So we want 4/4 as greater than 3/6. And the proper way to read that is 3/6 is less than 4/4. Okay, let's keep going, ladies and gentlemen. Math goes a lot faster without interruptions. Okay, I'm going to lock this real quick so that it doesn't run away on us. There we go. Okay, 14 and 15. Write who ran the greater distance. Use a number line to help. So I pre-drew the number lines. It would be awesome if you paused the video and drew your own number lines. And a trick, you could hold your paper up to the screen like you guys do at recess when you're copying pictures off the internet and copy the number lines that way. I tried to make them as accurate as possible. So Haley ran a 1/2 mile. Peter ran 2/3. So if we were live on Zoom, I'd have somebody point out where half is, but bummer. I don't have anybody playing on the internet with me today. Okay, so we are going to mark Haley as 1/2. And hopefully you went, ooh, here's Haley. That's 1/2. So I'm going to mark that as 1/2. So please label your number line now. Peter ran 2/3. Oh, let's make Peter blue. That's my brother's name. Okay, so Peter 2/3. Hopefully you notice that I cut this number line into thirds. So 1/3, 2/3. Let's please label that one 2/3. Okay, that's not the neatest job in the world. Now it says who ran the greater distance. So now that we have marked those, we can write our little sentence. I'm gonna put my cursor up here and see if it'll let me type there. So hopefully you're like, ooh, I can see that Peter ran the further distance. Ran farther than, I think it's Dan, Haley, because 2/3 is greater than 1/2. There we go. So if you need a moment to copy that down, please pause the video. Okay, now let's come on over here and let's make Kim pink. Kim ran 1/3. So earlier we said that we cut this line into thirds. If this is 2/3, then I know this must be, hopefully you just whispered out 1/3, Mrs. Mears. So I'm going to label that 1/3. Okay, now I have Jessie, and I have not used yellow, so Jessie gets to be yellow. 5/6. So I cut this into sixths. Let's just count them real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, I cut that into 6. Jessie ran 5/6. So let's look again and find the 5 mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this must be 5/6. Okay, I'm going to write 5/6 on there. Okay, I have labeled my number line, and I am comparing 1/3 and 5/6. So here's my 1/3, here's my 5/6. Who ran the greater distance? I'm going to put my cursor here. And I'm going to do blank. Ran the greater distance because, oopsie, spelled that wrong. Okay, I left some blanks. I'm hoping you will fill in the blanks. Maybe I'll do a blank there. Hello. There we go. Oh. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to pick up my stylus and we're going to try writing on this. Let's go with purple because purple is my friend. So as I look at this, I notice that I can't find my cursor. There we go. This is closer to 1. That means it's larger. So that means Jessie is the name I'm going to write for the grader. Jessie. And hopefully yours is neater than mine. Jessie ran the greater distance. Now we have to do the alligator mouth to eat Jessie's number. And that was what? 5, 6. So please make your alligator, whoopsie. I guess my alligator needs to go to the dentist. Okay, make your alligator eat the 5, 6. Okay, on to our next one. And on this one, I also pre-did the number lines to make it easy. If you want to pause the video, put your paper up to your computer screen and trace the number lines. You're welcome to do that now. Greg says, I know 1/4 of a mile is longer than 1/3 of a mile because 4 is greater than 3. Do you agree with Greg? Explain. So on this one, I cut these number lines. The black represents 4ths. The blues are going to be 8ths because we're going to use that for this guy over here. So I want to mark 1/4 and I want to mark 1/3. So I'm going to do my bunny jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right here is, I don't know which one I have. Oop, I got pink, don't want pink. Right here is my 1/4. So I'm going to label that guy 1/4 real quick. Okay, now I need to go find a 1/3. So this is the number line that I cut into thirds. 1, 2, 3. I want to mark it on my 1/3 spot and I want to label it 1/3. Now they threw this problem in hopes that you'd remember yesterday's lesson. I think it was yesterday's, where it was talking about if 2 fractions have the same numerator, the fraction with the larger denominator is the smaller fraction. So they were hoping you'd make that connection. So it says Greg says, I know 1/4 of a mile is longer. So he's saying 1/4 is bigger than 1/3 because 4 is greater than 3. Do you agree with Greg? Explain. So we're going to say no, Greg is wrong. One-4 is smaller than 1/3 because if 2 fractions have the same numerator, the fraction with the larger denominator is the smaller. Oh, whoops, didn't mean to do that. And I'm going to make this a little bigger so it's easier for you to see. Oopsie, I thought I was going to make it bigger. Let's try that again. There we go. Oh, come on. Shift my thingy over so that it fits better, but it doesn't want to. Please. No. Okay, I give up. I'm persistent if it's not working. Okay, so if you need to pause the video to get that copy down, please do so. So for our next problem, we have Larry running 6/8. I'm going to use a different color. We'll make Larry blue. And Anne ran 1/2 mile. We'll make Anne yellow. So let's mark Anne first because that's a little easier. I know that 1/2 is how far between 0 and 1. So hopefully you're thinking 1/2 is halfway between 0 and 1. So your eyeballs can see that that's about the halfway point. I'm going to label that 1/2. And if you have markers at home or colored pencils at home and you want to color code your work, that might help your brain. So there's Anne. Now I need to mark Larry. So earlier, you remember me saying that I marked this one in 1/8. So let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Took 8 jumps to get all the way to 1. So that is in fact 1/8. And I need to make a mark at 6. So let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is where I'm making my mark. And I need to label that 6/8. So I would love for you to label it 6/8 on your number line. Remember, if you need to pause the video to get caught up, please do so. And we need to explain who ran the greater distance. So looking at our 6/8 and looking at our 1/2, who ran the greater distance? So I'm going to type this one with a blank in it because I want you to fill it in. Okay, I'm going to highlight that, make our font a little bigger so it's easier for your eyeballs to see. Let's see what 26 made it a little bit too big. But I'm going to take a space out and that'll move it down. Wow, maybe. Okay, that did not do what I wanted. I wanted this. There we go, down below that. Okay, blank ran the greater distance because 6/8, you're going to do your alligator mouth, and 1/2. So pause the video. I'm going to write in what the answer is, and hopefully you have the same answer. So hopefully you wrote Larry. Oh, that's supposed to be an A. And Waylon's getting comfy on the couch behind me. And then you have your alligator going that direction. Okay, we are nearing the finish line, ladies and gentlemen. Colin has 234 seashells in his collection. Tina has 156 seashells more in her collection. How many seashells do Colin and Tina have in all? So they're trying to trick you with this one. They've given us the 234. They've given us a 156, but they gave us a clue word. More. I'm gonna change. Well, somebody dropped something in the kitchen. I'm gonna change color on that guy. Let's go for yellow. So I'm gonna draw a little visual diagram to help you with this one. So it's kind of like a part total diagram. So we know that Colin has 234. Then it says that Tina has 156 more. So she's got more than Colin does. But right now, we don't know how much she has. We do know that Colin is 234. So I can start off by writing 234. Now she has 156 more, so this was Colin. Now Tina, we're going to take that 234 and we're going to add 156. So we've got, oh, I didn't want to do it that way. We're going to take the 234. No, that's not a 4. And we're going to add that 156 more onto it. So we have to figure out what Tina has. Okay, so I know that 6 plus 4 is 10. I'm going to make a little mark so I don't forget my little carry mark. 5 plus 3 is 8. Plus 1 more makes 9. 1 plus 2 is 3. So now they're asking us how many seashells do Colin and Tina have? So they want to know the grand total of if they put their collections together. So I need to add the 234 plus the 390. See, that's not a very nice 0. Okay, and I'd love you to add that up real quick. Pause the video, don't just peek at my answer. So 4 plus nothing is 4. 9 plus 3 is, oopsie, where'd my mouse go? 12. Carry a 1. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 1 more makes 6. So they have 624. I'm going to type seashells because that would be a lot for me to try to handwrite. Okay, now let's move it over because right now it's on top of our number. Okay, 624 seashells. Okay, now we have some dinosaurs. Use the pictures below. Was the length of a T-Rex, so here's our T-Rex, closer to 1/4 or 1/2 the length of the Brachiosaurus? Explain. So on this one, we can actually estimate. As I look at 39, I notice that is really close to what number? Hopefully, you just thought, ooh, that's really close to 40. Now, the Brachiosaurus is 81. What is that really close to? What's a friendly number for that? Hopefully, you just thought, ooh, 80. So now I'm comparing 40 and 80, and I need to think, is 40 about 1/4 of 80, or is 40 about 1/2 of 80? And if you're like, then I want you to think of it this way. This means divide, this line right here. You'll do that a lot in 5th grade. So I'm going to take that 80 divided by 4. And if you're like, oh, that scares me, then just think of it as a simpler problem. 8 divided by 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. So that would give you an answer of 20. Is that 20? No. So let's come on over here, 1/2. So let's take that 80 and divide it by 2. 80 divided by 2 is the same concept, smaller problem, as 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that would mean 80 divided in half is 40. Is that the number we wanted? Yes. So we're going to say half because I think I'll type. That's looking bad. Okay, so half $40 is, we're going to say 39 is close to 40, and 81 is close to 80. $40 is about, it's not is about, it actually is. 40 is half of 80. Now I need to get rid of that. Okay, we'll shrink that. And let's make our font bigger. And hope it fits. Ooh, yay, it fit. Okay, so for number 18, you are writing half because 39 is close to 40 and 81 is close to 80. 40 is half of 80. So that's your explanation on why the T-Rex is closer to half the length of the Brachiosaurus. Okay, number 20, Cody ran half a mile during gym class. Which fraction is not equivalent to half? So those of you that had me for Smart Group, remember we listed out a lot of equivalent fractions. So on your paper, I want you to write half equals, and you're going to list out a bunch. And hopefully yours is neater than mine. And we'll do one more. Now our numerator is going to count by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now our denominator is going to count by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So now it wants us to figure out which one is not equivalent to a half. 2/4, yep, there it is. 2/8, I do not have a 2/8, so that one's looking good. 3/6, oh, there it is. 4/8, there it is. So 2/8, not and I'm going to put equal. Okay, so hopefully on your paper you listed all these equivalent fractions, and then next to it or below it or above it, wherever you have room, write 2/8 not equal. Okay, I think we're ready for our quick check now. Okay, so hopefully it did not time out on me. I'm going to pull up today's quick check and go over it with you. Okay, I'm going to enlarge it so you can see it a little better because that is a little bit small. Okay, so what you can do is you can pause the video and then kind of go dual screen so that you can hear me read the questions and give you hints while you take it. So why don't you pause the video, go into Pearson, and open up your digital quick check, and then once you have it in 2 screens side by side, then hit play again on the video. Number 1, Miriam swam 1 3/4 lengths of the pool. Louisa swam 1 3/8 lengths Kevin swam 1.5 lengths. Which shows the 3 distances in order from least to greatest? So I'm going to see if it'll let me write on it. I don't think it does. Nope, it doesn't. Okay, 1 3/4. I want you to notice that's right here. 1 3/8. That is right here. Now they were naughty. They put an equivalent fraction for 1.5. So they are hoping you will make the connection that a half is equivalent to 2/4. So now that I've pointed out where all of these are on the number line, you have to decide which one shows them from least to greatest. So if it helps you to rewind this little video back a few seconds and look at what I said for these numbers, do that. I'm going to read your options. A, 1.5, 1 3/8, 1 3/4. B, 1 3/8, 1.5, 1 3/4. C, 1 3/4, 1.5, 1 3/8. D, 1 3/4, 1 3/8, 1.5. So select which one you think shows them from least, so smallest, to greatest, largest. Now remember, your least number is going to be at this end of the number line, and your greatest is going to be down near this end of the number line. Okay, number 2, Randy walks his dog 2/4 of a mile. So as we look at this visual, we notice this top row, they've put fraction tiles for fourths. You have to decide where 2/4 would be. Laura walks her dog a shorter distance, so she does not walk it as far as Randy does. Which of these fractions is less than 2/4? So your first thing, you got to figure out where is 2/4. And then for A, oh, I don't know if it shows everything. I may have, oh, there we go. So for A, you have to decide, is 3/4 less than 2/4? For B, is 5/8 less than 2/4? C, is 2/4 less than 2/4? D, is 2/6 less than 2/4? Okay, now I gotta slide up to see the top part. Jason practices his flute for a half hour every day. Cody practices more than Jason does. Which of these fractions is greater than half? If it helps you to go back and look at some of the number lines we did in our spiral earlier, that might be a good strategy that you can use. So you're looking for a fraction larger or greater than half. 5/8 for A, 2/4 for B, 3/6 for C, 2/8 for D. Now remember, you want it greater than half, not equal to half. And there's only one correct answer on this guy. Okay, number 4. Jason has 4 strips of paper, all the same size. So that's like saying he's got 4 chunks of paper, all the same size, but they're in different colors. So there's a red one that he cuts into 3 equal parts. So imagine he's cutting into thirds. He's got a blue one that he cuts into 4 equal parts. So that would be like 1, 2, 4 equal parts. A green one that he cuts into 6 equal parts. I don't have finger talent to show you that one. And yellow strip that he cuts into 8 equal pieces. So which color pieces are the largest? So think of it as unit fractions. They're all going to have a 1 for a numerator. And the 3, the 4, the 6, and the 8 are your denominators. So you need to think about that learning that we had the other day, where it says if my numerators are all the same, then my fraction that has the largest denominator is the smallest fraction. So they want to know which color piece would be the biggest. Would it be the blue? And blue would you'd be thinking of 1/4. Would it be yellow? So for yellow, you'd be thinking of it as 1/8. Would it be red, which you would be thinking of as 1/3? Or would it be green, which you would be thinking of as 1/6? I would take some time on this particular problem. It's a bit tricky. Don't rush and don't play eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Okay, our last one. Which fraction is greater than 3/4? Remember, you can go back in your spiral and look at some of those number lines. Greater than 3/4. A, 3/6. B, 3/8. C, 2/3. D, 7/8. So, since I did not show you any answers on this one, you can see, didn't answer any. When I submit it, I'm gonna have a big fat goose egg, big 0. So hopefully you do better than I just did. And I hope you are having a wonderful day. And let me see if I can figure out how to end the video. So we will stop the share. Ooh, stop video. There we go. Oh, I could choose a virtual background. That sounds cool. Let's do that real quick. Okay. Oh. Well, I guess I don't have any to choose from. I'll have to play with that. I've seen other people have like Hawaii behind them, which would be kind of fun. Okay. So we'll close that. We will stop the share. We will stop the recording. Whoopsie, helps to have it on pointer. I did that yesterday too. Okay, now pause, stop the recording. Oh, no, end meeting.